please, we have these few seats in front if anyone wants to move ahead. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Anubhav Nath. And to start with, this is a good time to put our phones on silent. So please just take a minute, not even like 2 seconds, and please put your phones on silent. I promise you, you can switch them back on later. On behalf of my family, my parents, Alka and Ashok Nath, and on behalf of Ramchandranath Foundation and the other trustees, my sisters, Shonali and Shafali, who are completely missing in action today, I extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here. So, today is a very special day for me personally, and not just because of the speakers we have here today, Sanjoy and Uli, but also to me, this feels like a corroboration of about 2 decades of my work and all that I have been doing, be it in the art space with Salam Balak Trust and all these different things. So I would begin with just telling you a little bit about, of course, the car that is parked there. That's a Maybach from SW38, 1936, originally owned by the Maharaja of Patiala, and then acquired by my grandfather and lovingly restored and has been in the family ever since. And so it was in 2005 that I got a handwritten letter from Uli when that was his first visit to India. And it was addressed to Baba, and of course, Baba was not there with us anymore. And I responded saying that, Uli was most welcome to visit us on his visit to India, to Delhi, to see the car, and to generally meet, talk. And little did I know that we would get to be friends, and eventually like family friends for like almost 2 decades now. In fact, we just met up recently in February last year, summer last year, where we were kind of putting together, we're like, yeah, we've known each other for 20 years. So it's been, 20 years of knowing Uli and the Maybach Foundation. And lots of things came out from Uli's visit to India, including Wiki's nomination slash support by the Maybach Foundation for his residency in New York, photo documenting the World Trade Center. That led me to Salam Balak Trust, where I got a first-hand experience of what the trust was doing. And I started as a volunteer, and now I'm a trustee there. And, so like I was saying, like this almost feels like, in art terms, like a mini retrospective for me of my life. And there, of course, I met Sanjoy, Gagan, who's here, my co-trustee. And, Sanjoy has been rather indulgent of all that I want to do at Jaipur Literature Festival and my other art eccentricities. He's always been very supportive of that. So, yeah, so all of those good things. And then, so Sanjoy is also a mentor, tormentor, tormentor. So before we start off, I'm going to just tell everyone a little bit about both of them. So Uli Maybach is a philanthropist and entrepreneur, the great-grandson and grandson of Willem and Karl Maybach, respectively, founder of the Maybach Foundation, which gives exceptionally talented young individuals the chance to change the world. Is now personally involved in the Maybach Icons of Luxury, runs the Maybach family office, has speaking engagements all over the world, but most importantly, a true friend. No, I want to. Sanjoy Roy, an entrepreneur of the arts, with festivals in 40 cities across the world, founder trustee of Salam Balak Trust. He works closely with various industry bodies and governments on policy issues and lectures at leading international universities. A few years ago, he was conferred an honorary doctorate, making him Dr. Roy, after which he's officially my mentor. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Uli and Sanjoy as they talk about philanthropy, automotive heritage, and mentorship. Over to the both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anubhav, and thank you, Ashok and Alka and Devyani, and everybody here at the Ojas Art Foundation. It's absolutely a pleasure, Uli, to have you here. Um, I hear so much about everything that you've been involved with. I know that you hosted them last summer at the wonderful occasion where all of the wonderful cars of the world come together. But more recently, I think in Udaipur. But I just wanted you to sort of start by telling us a little bit about the background of Maybach. And in 1905, how did this come about? Your grandfather, your great grandfather, what was the story and the fact that he himself was an orphan, your great grandfather? Tell us a little bit about the background and how um, the Maybach became part of Mercedes and Daimler and that whole journey.
Sure, sure. Happy to do that. And thank you for that kind introduction, both you, Sanjoy, and Anubhav, both. And it's such a great privilege to be here in this beautiful place with Anubhav and his lovely family, who I've also gotten to know over the years. And I just would like to reflect that, you know somebody for some period of time, and then you interact, and in one moment you go, wow, we're actually really good friends. It just sort of strikes you. And I think it struck me when we were in Friedrichshafen at my cousin's cafe the other day. Again, like each time you visit, it grows a little bit more. And in the life that we have while we're here, and those are really among the most treasured things that we can have, I think, is these friendships and these relationships. So I just want you to know how blessed I feel to be here with you, and to also have you present at this event in Udaipur, which was sort of fantastical with this beautiful car. So in any case, the car goes back to my grandfather, but the initial legacy goes to my great-grandfather, Wilhelm, who in the mid-1850s, his mother had died of tuberculosis and his father drowned in a nearby lake, so the 5 brothers were dispersed into the community, and Wilhelm Maybach, my great-grandfather, went into an orphanage. And it's in that orphanage that was sort of a progressive Catholic organization that believed not just in the faith in God, but also in the work that people do while they're here on this planet. And that alienated him from the Catholic Church, so it was kind of an outcast. In any case, Wilhelm was studying to be a baker there. Gottlieb Daimler, who had been a product of kind of a German Reformation movement that had taken southern Germany from a backwater, from a very poor, starving backwater, into really one of the global economic powerhouses of the world at the time, in part because of good leadership. So there had been bad leadership. A new king came in. He started building roads and transportation corridors. He hired other really smart people. He hired a guy named Steinbeiß, who was sort of a foreign minister of sorts, who said, we need to bring all our young, bright young minds and send them into foreign countries so that they can learn and bring that learning back. And Gottlieb Daimler was one of these bright minds. He had several degrees. He went to the United Kingdom. He came back. He had this engineering knowledge. And instead of going into engineering, he wanted to work for a nonprofit. He wanted to cut his teeth. So he went to this Bruderhaus, as it's known, where Maybach was an orphan, and realized that this organization tried its best to do good, but didn't know much about technical machinery or anything, which was really his job there, to help them build farming equipment and farming implements. So he thought, this kid can sketch, and he shouldn't be a baker, so I'm going to take him and we're going to go off and do something together, which was the founding of the Daimler Motor Company, which then gave my great-grandfather the opportunity to design the first high-speed internal combustion engine, put that into a cycle, motorizing the first motorcycle, putting into a boat the first motorboat, and then in 1901 with the Type 35, the first Mercedes, which was effectively the first modern car as we know it today. So important inventions. I'm going to be the first to say that, there's a whole mix of things and people working on these things. So you can never say that just one person took credit for something. Somebody pushed it along, somebody else came in, learned from it, took it a little further. So, it was a milieu 100 years ago, not unlike what we have going on in, let's say, Silicon Valley today. Who invented the spreadsheet, right? I mean, that wasn't just one guy, really. It was was a series of steps and innovations. So Wilhelm's son, Carl, a little bit of a dilettante, really got his start by designing engines for Count Zeppelin. And the Zeppelin was kind of a big deal in the early 1900s. It was what everybody thought was going to be flight, and they didn't think aircraft were actually going to happen. And he designed these engines as high-altitude aircraft engines. They went up to 20,000 feet, very precise, very high quality. He was able to parlay those engines into three things I like to say, which is really by land, by air, by sea. So by land, we can say the train, the German railway system, which had been running on steam engines, was so disrupted with these diesel-powered electric generator engines, dynamos, that the trains went basically twice as fast with this technology. And even today, the German trains still run on these initial Maybach engines. Investing in engines for watercraft, so that today, aside from many other applications, the 100-meter yacht plus mega yacht market is probably 60% Maybach engines, so in the private space of these private yachts. And then, of course, these beautiful cars that we see out here, which was almost an accident that happened. But that's, in short, the legacy. And when you fast forward to 1997, Mercedes comes back, revives the Maybach car as we know it, and I became more involved at that time as something of a brand ambassador and representing the family and so forth. And I've been doing that sort of as a hobby ever since.
What was really interesting, like he said, when his great-grandfather used to cycle, and he used to cycle all over the place, and you can see it if you just Google their foundation, you can see the cycle. But what was interesting is you have a car, and you have the first accident. And that first accident then got them to relook at the chassis and the way that the chassis was formed.
Well, so there's actually a funny story around that, because you've got to imagine, you build an engine, you put it into a cart, you put it into something, and the villagers, because this happened in a greenhouse, the villagers thought it was the devil's work, and they actually called the police. These engines were really loud and black smoke, and so the police had to come frequently. But the way they actually overcame this was a farmer whose horse broke down in town, they gave him a ride back. And that was the beginning of the acceptance of this as a reasonable substitute for the horse and carriage.
You know, moving forward, Uli, what's really interesting, and I think many of the people in the room will resonate with this, you could have well sort of gone on and done Elon Musky things, which is, you know, as we are seeing the consequence today. But the Maybach Foundation is something that you are now pretty much behind and part of. You look at a whole host of stuff, and it's really about